On Sunday, the coaching staff of the Cleveland Browns walked into Soldier Field with a plan that can only be described in one way: a suicide mission disguised as a football game. If you only looked at the headlines, you saw the disaster. You saw Shedeur Sanders posting 3 interceptions, taking 5 brutal sacks, and looking like a rookie who was completely out of his depth. But if you actually watched the game, if you analysed the film and looked past the box score, you saw something much darker. You witnessed a level of coaching malpractice that borders on organisational sabotage. This wasn't just a bad game. It was a systematic failure to protect a franchise quarterback. Kevin Stefanski, a man once praised for his offensive genius, rolled out a strategy so detached from reality that it left fans and analysts wondering if he was trying to lose. The final score read 31-3. A total humiliation. But the numbers don't tell you how we got there. They don't tell you that Cleveland arrived unprepared, understaffed, and led by a staff that seemingly learned nothing from their previous success. This is the story of how the Browns set their rookie star up to fail, and why what happened in Chicago should have every fan in Cleveland demanding answers. Section 1. The box score trap. Let's address the elephant in the room immediately. The stat line is ugly. It's the kind of stat line that makes casual fans scream bust on Twitter. 177 yards, 18 completions on 35 attempts, 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. And perhaps most damning, 5 sacks that lost the team 35 yards of field position. On paper, it looks like Shedeur Sanders collapsed under the pressure. It looks like he wasn't ready for the NFL spotlight. But basing your opinion solely on those numbers is a trap, and it's exactly what the critics want you to do. To understand why this performance was an anomaly, you have to look at what happened just 7 days prior. 1 week ago, the Browns' offensive strategy was a thing of beauty. It was shrewd, effective, and tailored perfectly to Sanders' skill set. They ran fast outs, getting the ball out of his hands before the rush could get home. They utilized screen passes to get playmakers in space. They designed rollouts that let Sanders use his legs and athleticism to create outside the pocket. It was a masterclass in building a rookie's confidence. But then, for reasons that defy logic, everything changed. Section 2. The tactical betrayal. In the span of a single week, did Shedeur Sanders suddenly forget how to play quarterback? Did his talent evaporate on the flight to Chicago? Obviously not. The variable that changed wasn't the player. It was the philosophy. Stefanski and his offensive staff took the blueprint that worked, the quick game, the movement, the protection schemes, and threw it directly into the trash. Instead of protecting their young asset, they asked him to operate a traditional deep drop passing attack. This decision is baffling when you consider the context. They were facing a playoff-bound Chicago defense known for bringing maximum pressure and aggression. Yet, the game plan called for slow-developing routes that required Sanders to hold the ball. They abandoned the quick reads. They stopped moving the pocket. They essentially asked a rookie to stand like a statue behind a crumbling wall and wait to be hit. This wasn't just a failure to adjust. It was a refusal to acknowledge reality. And when you look at who was protecting him, the decision to run this scheme moves from bad coaching to negligence. Section 3. The trenches were a crime scene. You cannot talk about this loss without talking about the offensive line, because this is where the game was lost before the ball was even snapped. Sanders wasn't playing behind a veteran line that he had chemistry with. He wasn't even playing behind the primary backups. Due to injuries, The Browns were rolling out what amounted to a third-string unit. We are talking about practice squad players being thrown into starting roles against a defensive front that was licking its chops. From the very first snap, it was a massacre. The Chicago defensive line didn't just win their reps, they dominated them. Sanders barely had 2 seconds to scan the field before the pocket collapsed. A logical coach looks at this mismatch and says, "We need to help them." You chip with tight ends. You keep a running back in to block. You roll the pocket away from the pressure. Stefanski did none of that. He left his rookie quarterback on an island, forcing him to fend for himself against wave after wave of Bears defenders. It is heartbreaking to watch a quarterback do everything right mentally, only to be physically punished because his coach won't adapt. There were plays where Sanders had a 280-pound defensive end in his face before his back foot even hit the ground at the top of his drop. That isn't football. That's survival. And when you send a soldier into combat without armor, weapons, or support, you don't get to act surprised when they get destroyed. Section 4. The Jerry Judy incident. Nothing illustrates the lack of help Sanders received quite like the Jerry Judy situation. There is a specific play from this game that encapsulates the entire disaster. The Browns needed a spark. Sanders took the snap, read the defense perfectly, and delivered a strike. It was a flawless throw, the kind of pass that requires touch, anticipation, and precision to fit into tight coverage. It hit Jerry Judy square in the chest. It was the easiest catch you can ask a professional wide receiver to make. But what happened? Judy dropped it. The ball bounced off his chest, popped into the air, and was intercepted. In the box score. That goes down as an interception for Shedeur Sanders. History will remember that as a bad throw or a rookie mistake. But anyone with eyes knows the truth. Sanders did his job. Judy failed his. That play didn't just kill a drive, it killed the team's momentum. It robbed Sanders of a touchdown and handed him a turnover that wasn't his fault. This brings up a massive question regarding the roster construction. Why is Jerry Judy the primary target for a franchise quarterback? Why is there no alpha receiver who can win 50-50 balls or demand double teams? The Browns have a collection of complementary pieces, guys who are great as a third or fourth option. But when you force them to be the guy, they get exposed. And when your receivers can't separate and catch, and your line can't block, your quarterback is doomed. Section 5. A tale of two rookies. The pain of this loss was magnified by what was happening on the other sideline. Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback, looked calm, collected, and efficient. He threw for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and was only sacked 3 times. Critics will point to this and say, "See, Williams is the better player." But that is a lazy analysis. You have to look at the ecosystem surrounding these two players. Williams was operating from a clean pocket. His coaching staff designed a game plan that played to his strengths and exploited the Browns' weaknesses. He had reliable weapons who made plays for him. He wasn't asked to be a superhero. He was asked to be a quarterback. Meanwhile, Sanders was playing a different sport entirely. He was playing dodgeball with defensive linemen. He was trying to create magic out of broken plays because the structure of the offense had completely failed him. If you swapped their situations, put Williams behind that Browns offensive line with Stefanski calling the plays, the result would likely have been the same. This comparison proves that talent alone isn't enough in the NFL. You need an organization that actually wants you to succeed. Caleb Williams has that. Right now, Shedeur Sanders does not. Section 6. The one-dimensional death spiral. The failure in Chicago wasn't just on the offense. It was a total organizational collapse. The Browns' special teams were a disaster, missing field goals and giving up big returns. In a league where momentum is everything, starting every drive with poor field position is like fighting with one hand tied behind your back. But the biggest issue was the complete elimination of the running game. Because the Browns couldn't run the ball, Chicago knew exactly what was coming. They didn't have to respect the play action. They didn't have to keep a safety in the box. They could pin their ears back and rush the passer with reckless abandon, because they knew Cleveland was one-dimensional. This allowed them to play aggressive coverage and use exotic blitz packages that confuse young quarterbacks. Sanders was trapped in a vicious cycle. The run game failed, so they had to pass. The pass protection failed, so they had to throw quick or scramble. The receivers couldn't separate quickly, so he had to hold the ball. And when he held the ball, he got sacked. It was a death spiral, and the coaching staff did nothing to pull him out of it. They watched their quarterback get battered for 4 quarters and refused to change the approach. Conclusion, the ultimatum. So where do the Browns go from here? The narrative coming out of the locker room is predictable. Stefanski will stand at the podium, use a bunch of corporate buzzwords about process and learning opportunities, and evade responsibility for the tactical nightmare he created. But the fans are tired of the jargon. They are tired of watching talented quarterbacks come to Cleveland to die. The reality is simple. Shedeur Sanders is the solution. The talent is there. The mental toughness to endure a game like that and keep fighting is there. But he cannot do it alone. Josh Allen didn't become a superstar by himself. Patrick Mahomes didn't win Super Bowls without a line. The Browns have a choice to make this offseason. They can either continue to waste draft picks on luxury items, or they can get serious about building a fortress around their quarterback. They need to spend high draft capital on the offensive line. They need to go out and get a true number 1 receiver, a guy who catches the ball when it hits him in the chest. And most importantly, ownership needs to take a long, hard look at the coaching staff. If Stefanski proves he is unable or unwilling to adapt his scheme to his players, then he is not the right man for the job. You cannot sacrifice a franchise quarterback to save a coach's ego. If you watched this game, really watched it, you know the truth. Sanders wasn't the problem. The system was. And until the Browns fix the system, history is destined to repeat itself. What do you think? Was this loss on Shedeur, or was he set up to fail by Stefanski? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to keep up with the truth about what's happening in Cleveland, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.